Alright, well, welcome. Like she said, I'm Olivia Cheeseman. Most of you know me as the music director. You also may know that as a result of the pandemic, my technological skills started being used in different aspects throughout the church. I am so excited to get to talk to you all about different technology tips and recommendations. We will discuss technology amongst different generations, internet safety, search engines, passwords, communication, and QR codes. Afterwards, we will make space for anyone who has specific questions about things. You are invited to bring your devices, your laptops, tablets, phones. So if you have those, we will have some folks who will be available to walk through any questions you may have about your devices. So as people are often to quick out, I am very young. With that being said, I want to try to offer my perspective as someone who's been deeply immersed in technology from a young age. Before we dive in, I have a few rules. First, don't be afraid to ask questions. If you have a very specific question about your device, it may be best saved for the end when we take time to work with folks individually. All questions are welcome. You can't learn as easily otherwise. Next, it's okay if you get frustrated. Frustration, as I'm sure you know, is a part of life, especially when it comes to learning new things. Finally, once you leave here, if you have questions, you're definitely welcome to ask me. However, we hope to equip you with the tools to better encourage self-sufficiency going forward. This means search engines can become your best friend. As many of you have noticed, different generations handle technology their own way. Today we're going to present two categories that broadly present how different people view technology: digital natives and digital immigrants. Digital natives are people who were born during or after the digital era, which begins in 1980. For a little perspective, I was born in 1995. Adults born before the digital era are dubbed digital immigrants. With that being said, again, these are very broad descriptions of people's experience with technology. You may see young people as tech gurus. Your children or grandchildren somehow know everything about all these crazy evolving devices. This is largely because of the opportunity for immersion they have. Just like learning a language, the younger you start hearing and using that language, the more easily fluent you can become. Digital natives have certain qualities. They like constant connectivity. Being apart from their devices can cause some anxiety, mostly because of the dependence they've developed around those devices. They prefer immediacy. Digital natives have had the privilege of information at their fingertips available at any time. They prefer shorthand messages. Because of that preference for immediacy, texting long-form text can be fatiguing for some. Why spend the time writing laughing out loud when you could write LOL? They go to the internet first for information. Since they've had immediacy of information at their fingertips, to them it is easier to read articles and chat boards rather than finding a book or finding someone to talk to in person. Instinctually, search engines are their best friends. Finally, they prefer socializing online instead of in person. It is so convenient to connect with people online who might live far away or do life on a different schedule. I personally find it so great that I can text my best friend, knowing that she will text me when she has a free moment, and we can have a continuous conversation over several days without it interfering with our work and family life. Digital immigrants have different qualities than different digital natives. They prefer talking on the phone or in person. That personal connection just holds a higher value than typing text on such a small device. They value proper English in messages. For most, it takes more energy to decipher those shorthand lingo messages that are used by the digital natives. With that being said, they also aren't as familiar with slang on the internet. How often have you heard your child or grandchild use a random phrase and wonder what in the world they were trying to communicate? I wonder that with my 11-year-old. Digital immigrants also have a preference for printed materials for learning. Learning on a screen isn't as instinctual for most because it wasn't available in those younger, more formative years, which is why you have handouts. As a reminder, these are very broad descriptions and can be broken down further if I had a little more time. So keep in mind, when you have frustrations with technology or you see these younger folks who seem to excel so easily at it, there's that immersion aspect that was available for some and not for others. Now that we've gone over the differences of how people might view technology, let's dig into some advice that is useful to all people. When considering tips that might be useful for folks, I reached out to Danny Helscher. He works in cybersecurity for USAA, and so I asked him for some advice on internet safety. The following suggestions are ones that he recommended. Use numerical passwords or facial recognition on your mobile device. Some also have fingerprints. Mine has a fingerprint. This keeps people from logging into your mobile device and retrieving any personal and private information you may have stored there. When logging into your financial accounts, email, and medical accounts, you always want to enable multi-factor authentication. This means that when you log in, it'll ask you to verify that it's you by sending you a code via text or email. If you have multi-factor authentication enabled and you receive a code without trying to log in yourself, you will know for certain that there is someone out there with your password trying to access your accounts. Keep things up to date. It is best practice to enable updates to install automatically on your devices. Most updates that happen are actually to help improve security on your devices. Never connect to public Wi-Fi.
Okay, would you explain what that is?
Absolutely. So many stores, coffee shops, St. Peter's even does it, has a public Wi-Fi that doesn't require a password for convenience for some people. However, you should avoid connecting to these things in most cases. I would say St. Peter's is pretty safe, but I'm a little biased there. It is a risky practice to connect to Wi-Fi in like Best Buy or Starbucks or wherever else. Because with an open Wi-Fi like you see in these places, it's very easy for someone to connect to your device and find your information. Now, if you suspect foul play and it seems like someone has managed to access your information, there are several things you should do immediately. Put a hold on your credit cards, call your bank, freeze everything so no one can access it. And then go change your passwords to any email and financial and medical accounts. Yes?
Incognito supposedly goes and takes you off some of the places.
So incognito, in my experience, and Matthew can correct me if I'm wrong, is more about it doesn't track your user behavior, and it doesn't keep track of your history, which is great if you want to browse the internet without anybody finding out what you were browsing. But let's jump on, we're actually jumping into search engines here. Yes.
Okay, like if you were staying at a hotel, okay, and they have their internet, okay, and they give you a password.
That is much more safe than connecting to one that doesn't have a password. So most of the times in hotels or motels or whatever, they'll give you a specific password that's just for the hotel that only guests can access. Some hotels will even give you an access code that's unique to your room, which is even more safe, just another level of security. So, if you're staying in a hotel, if you're traveling, by all means, connect to the Wi-Fi as long as it has a password. If it does not have a password, it is not nearly as safe. Or if that password is available to anybody and everybody who walks in because it's on a giant sign, not as safe.
Okay, like at airports, is that something?
Airports, yes, airports have public. Yeah, I would not log in on an airport.
If you would like some tips on how you could do that safely, there are some things we could go over if you have.
Yeah,
specific
there are
questions.
tips on how to go over it safely. I personally, when I am out and about, if I'm in an airport, for example, and I need Wi-Fi, one, I will not connect to the public Wi-Fi because it's not safe. It's also just like ridiculously slow, and it's hard to get things done. So what I do, and it may be an option for some of you on your phones, is I create a hotspot on my phone that is password protected, and it turns my phone into Wi-Fi itself. So I connect to that Wi-Fi separately, and I'm happy to show any of y'all how to do that during our Q&A session a little bit later. Okay. Safe search engines. This is another area involved in internet safety. So why use a private search engine? What's wrong with Google, Yahoo, or Bing? Those large and well-known search engines collect a lot of data about you. It keeps track of your search terms, your user behavior, so that it can sell that information to companies who can serve you with targeted ads and even track you. Have you ever wondered why when you search for information on a new car, you start seeing ads on every website and social media app you go on for cars? Something to consider. There are options for safe search engines though. Here are a few that I've heard are pretty decent. Startpage.com has a high quality search results and commits itself to user privacy. The company also has strict policy against collecting any user data. It also offers an anonymous view mode that acts as a protective shield, preventing the websites you go on from tracking its users. DuckDuckGo.com is a very popular choice. I know that's one Pastor Banachek uses. It gets you results from over 400 sources. It also includes a tool that can be installed to let you know how safe the different websites you're going on are. Finally, Quant.com is a France-based search engine that has higher privacy measures than its US competitors because it has to meet European data and privacy laws. I do not know the difference between the laws. I did not look that up. But it is a little bit stricter over in the EU. Quant.com also helps keep its users from getting stuck in what's called a filter bubble, which is where users get search results based on their behavioral profiles rather than seeing information and contradicting views. Any of these would be great options for securely searching the web.
What is it?
Yeah, you just go to the website, and a lot of them, when you go to the website, will actually have a button that says, make this my default search engine. So when you type like at the top of your web thing, something to search, it'll automatically search on that search engine that you've set as your default. I'm happy to help walk you through any of that too.
Can I just put that on my phone?
You can put it on your phone, yes.
There's every you can have an app.
Yeah, most of them have apps. And there's a lot of different ones. This is 3. I picked them off of a page of like the top 11 safe search engines of 2024. So these were 3 that I really thought were interesting and really liked, but there are a lot of options. Yes?
When I'm searching for information, not products, I've been using the AI tools now, like OpenAI and ChatGPT and Copilot. And
Yeah.
are those safe? I mean, they're wonderful. They
I
really
think they're
give you
wonderful
the
too.
information you need. But
Yeah, I am definitely a fan of the AI stuff as well. Matthew, you're a little bit more familiar.
I mean, they're more or less just as safe as Google or Bing would be, but they do, because they are a learning system that continues to try to get better, it does collect all of that data. Now, it might not be as personalized as like Google would be as far as targeted ads, but there's no like security blocks like these other ones have on there.
So how safe is Google?
So
It's not necessarily as much as a safety thing as
It's more of
Using
a-
Google is not likely to get you having your identity stolen as much so as just some of those privacy and targeted ads where the generalized information of what you're doing online is collected and used to
For
create
marketing.
revenue
Yeah.
for those companies.
Yeah, it creates personalized marketing for the most part.
Yeah.
I don't know if any of y'all ever watched Futurama, but there was an episode. It's not a famous show, but there was an episode where Fry, the main character who was frozen and woke up 1,000 years later and is discovering the future, had a dream that was a targeted ad. And it was because he saw a commercial about it and thought to himself, that seems interesting. And because of how it worked in the year 3000, he suddenly started having dreams about this product. It's kind of a similar thing. Google takes like what you're searching, whether it's a product or information or whatever, and it will use that data to set up behavioral profiles. Like if you really, really only like New York Times as your news source, for example, the first thing that's going to show you, because you clicked on New York Times so often, is probably New York Times and other comparable sites. However, if you ask me, like, personally, I don't think I'm super interesting. I use Google for everything.
You use Google?
I do use Google personally. I'm not the safest human, yes. So Siri is it's a listening assistant through Apple, and it connects to a search engine to find information for you. So when you ask Siri or Alexa or Google a question, it goes into whatever search engine it's programmed to go into to get that information and answer your question. So yeah.
So, okay, so that site, so if you ask your.
I'd have to check and see if you can change what search engine you use for Siri, because there's a chance you can make it safer. When you sign up to use Siri, you actually do, when you accept those terms and conditions that nobody ever reads, some of those terms and conditions do involve things about collecting user data. So when you're asking Siri a question, because you've accepted those terms and conditions, it'll say like, okay, people like Belva look on Siri for these things. How can we make Siri better for people like Belva? And so that's kind of what's happening with those.
I have a story to tell.
Yeah.
Talking about digital natives. When I read to the 3, 4, and 5-year-olds, this one 4-year-old class, I was reading something about ladybugs, and I said, well, we haven't seen the ladybugs yet. This little 4-year-old girl raises her hand and said, Miss Bella, we can ask Siri. We can ask Siri.
Yes. Yeah, it is very common for these younger kids to learn how to ask Google and ask Siri and ask Alexa different questions to find out the answers. Our own son will ask questions, usually what time it is. 'Cause he doesn't like figuring out what time it is, but you know, it's a thing. It's a lot there. All right, let's jump on to password. So one of the most frustrating parts of internet safety, to me at least, are passwords. However, passwords are required for pretty much everything you do on your devices. So, don't make these, I don't have change. My bad. Don't make these common mistakes. Do not use personal information in your password. It should not include a birthday or a family member's name or a pet's name. Do not put that in your password. Do not use predictable characters, meaning that common words or phrases can be easily guessed. If you put something like #1 UT fan as your password, and somebody goes on your Facebook profile and sees that you're a UT fan, they might guess that password. Don't use simple number sequences. Ending a password in 1, 2, 3, 4 may meet the requirement of having numbers in your password, but it's pretty easy to be guessed. You also shouldn't reuse your password. You may think you are keeping yourself from having to remember so many passwords, but you're setting yourself up to be compromised. If you use the same password everywhere, people can get access to so much more with one password. Finally, use caution when physically storing your passwords. I know so many people who have a small notebook with passwords to everything. During my time working at Geek Squad, we had a lot of people come in with their computers or their devices that needed help, and they would have a little pocket, like, notebook with all their passwords in it. That's so not safe. Yes? Yeah, this is a thing. This is a thing that
That's why we have someone, what do you suggest?
we're getting to this. Stay tuned, I will tell you what I suggest. So, it may seem like a good idea to write everything down, right? Because you can always go back, you can find it, you can open up your book, you can see it, all of that. However, when you misplace the book, or it gets damaged, or heaven forbid gets stolen, you are completely locked out of everything and will have to go through the exhausting and often confusing process of resetting your passwords. I hate resetting passwords. It's the worst.
So what do you recommend? Because I can't remember passwords. Are you getting to that?
Well, I'm getting to that. Don't you worry. We got some good password habits you can form. Password complexity. Passwords should have random letters, numbers, and symbols that don't make sense to anyone. Capitalize letters in random places. Throw in a number to replace a letter if you have a word. Add different symbols to spice it up. I'm talking like exclamation points, ampersands, pound signs, things like that. Use different passwords. You should never use the same password twice. You may think having so many complex and different passwords would be a pain, but that is where password managers can come to the rescue. So while sharing password mistakes, I did mention physically storing your passwords. A password manager is a software you can have to store your passwords. All you need to do is remember one master password, and it will automatically fill in the complex and creative passwords that hold all of your information. There are several free password managers out there. First is Bitwarden. Bitwarden is great for folks who have never used a password manager. It's easy to use, it has no limit on the amount of passwords you can store, and it also allows you to use it across all of your devices so that you don't have to try to find your password when logging into your bank on your computer or your phone. LogMe Once also is free and has no limit on the number of passwords you can store or the amount of devices you can use it on. It is also great because it uses that multi-factor authentication that we mentioned earlier, where it sends you a code to verify that it's actually you. ProtonPass is minimalistic but has a great user interface, meaning it's really easy to navigate and use. If you don't like seeing all of the extra frills in softwares, this one might be for you. It also includes unlimited password storage and usage across devices. Finally, Avira Password Manager is another great option that offers all of these perks already mentioned. And it also can store notes that you may need and credit card information to make it easier when you check out on websites. Super great for shopaholics like me. Any of these would be great options for you to keep your internet information secure. If you have questions about those, I'm happy to help you pick one and install it and all the things. And get you started doing that. 'Cause, yeah, we can move things from the book to the password manager.
I take it you think password managers are safe enough?
Password managers are extremely safe. There are different ones that aren't as safe. Some web browsers have password managers like Google Chrome, whatever it's called, Microsoft Edge. Is it still called Edge? I don't know, nobody uses it. It used to be Internet Explorer. Anyway, but those will often ask, like you'll type in a password and say, do you want us to save this password for you? When you have a password manager installed, Usually the password manager will overtake that and say like, hey, do you want to save this to your password manager? In which case you do say yes to that. Try not to say yes to the web browsers asking. Communication habits. So we're moving on from internet safety. Communication habits. A huge part of technology is its uses in communication. Many of you probably use technology to communicate with each other, family, and church staff. We're going to focus a little on church staff. So in regards to church staff, when should you expect responses from church staff? While several of our staff is available during daytime hours and when they are working from home, not all are. Hayden, our communications coordinator, who you all love and adore, for example, she does not check her email outside of the hours she is at the office. So if you email on her on a Friday after 2:30, you likely won't see a response until Monday. Our pastors both will often answer emails, texts, or calls during daytime hours on the days they work. They will likely not answer if you call on a day where they are observing their Sabbath. For Pastor Vanacek, this is on Fridays. For Pastor Lisa, it's on Mondays. In case of an emergency, leave a voicemail. They will get back to you when they can. If you would like to know other staff's response habits, check in with them directly. We all have our own preferences. So choosing a channel for communication. Should you call, email, or text? Calling should be reserved for inquiring about the more immediate needs you might have. For example, if you're on your way to a new coffee shop to meet with the pastor and you're going to be late or got lost, call the pastor and let them know. However, if you just desperately need to know why all the ushers decided to wear green on a random Sunday, you don't need to call. These types of concerns can actually be better communicated with an email. Emails should be used for inquiries and communication that don't require an immediate response. Keep in mind that whole when to expect a responses thing when you're emailing people. If you need to schedule a meeting with a member of church leadership, send an email that includes times you are available and the topic of concern to more easily schedule these meetings. The church staff does not have separate work phone numbers available for texting. So moving on to texting. We don't have separate work phone numbers. The phone numbers you have for us are usually our personal ones. It's important to keep in mind that if you are texting a member of staff on their personal cell phone, you're not always entitled to a response. Texts with staff should be limited to personal communications when possible, personal connections when possible. If you have a staff member's personal phone number and need to reach them about something personal, texting or calling that number is usually pretty appropriate. Otherwise, you need to go through the proper channels, preferably during office hours, unless it's emergent. And keep in mind like who the emergent staff people are and whatnot. Are there any questions before I?
Okay, now
Yes.
what is your hour?
Mine, okay, so I personally will not answer any emails after like 7 or 8 o'clock. I sometimes have the bad habit of texting people after that time. I personally don't mind text messages as a form of communication if it's something short. Like I have choir members who will text me and just say, hey, I don't remember what time rehearsal is tomorrow, or hey, I have COVID, I'm not coming this Sunday. If it's things that I do not have to remember later, for me, a text is fine. If it's something you need me to remember, like, hey, we should never sing this hymn ever again, send it to me in an email so I have that knowledge and I can store it how I store my emails and bring it up in like a worship committee meeting or something. I'm much more likely to remember to do things that are asked of me if it's in email form versus a text or a call. Yes?
How are you making this understood or known to people in the congregation?
That is a great question. We are not. It's actually, so we took a staff retreat last week, and one of the things we did talk about was communication boundaries with each other and with congregation. It is something we hope to implement in the near future of making it plain and easy to find communication preferences for different staff members. I know Pastor Vanderchick and Pastor Lisa, I believe they both do this. On their email signatures, it'll say like when they're gonna answer your emails and things like that. My email signature has my personal cell phone, and most of the time in emails, I will put something like, you can text or call if you don't want to email back about this particular thing. So it is a process of getting everyone informed and on the same page of our communication preferences across the board. When to respond? Okay. If you receive an email from church staff, consider whether or not a response is warranted. Sometimes we're just relaying information. Sometimes there is an obvious request for a response needed, outlined in the email. A common unnecessary response we see often in the office is when Ministry Scheduler Pro sends out an email for a sub request. It says Peyton as the sender. She didn't send it. Her name's just attached to the software. It is a completely automated email. So if Tom puts in that he can't be assisting minister that day and he needs a sub request, everybody who is on the list to be an assisting minister is going to get an email, whether their dates are blacked out that day or not. If you are unable to sub for that person, there is no need for you to respond. You do not have to respond, hey, I'm not available that day, hey, thanks for asking, but it's fine. You don't need to. It's really unnecessary. Because Peyton did not send that to you directly. It was the computer. Anyway, if you are available to sub, those emails have instructions for what you need to do to sign up. So usually it's just like, click a link if you're available to sub, and it'll take you to where you need to go. Each staff member has different communication preferences. When in doubt, reach out to them directly to learn how best to communicate with them. It is also best practice to advocate for your own personal communication preferences with people. I know there are people in the congregation I've bothered the complete wrong way because they might prefer a phone call instead of a text. QR codes. Okay. You may have noticed that our society utilizes QR codes today more than ever before. If you despise QR codes or never bothered to learn about them, or they just seem kind of scary to you, you're not sure if it's safe, now is the time. So let's start with what a QR code is. A QR code is a digital image, like the one you see here, that provides a web link when scanned by a camera on a smart device. This can be my iPad, an iPhone, Android phones if you're Android users. So why not just write out a web link? Why not just give you the web address of what we're trying to get you to? Links that use QR codes are often super long and prone to typos. Do you really want to type out a 50-character web page and hope that you get it exactly right? I don't. So is it safe? Yes. It is just as safe as going to any other website you might go to. In restaurants that use QR codes, most of the time it is just a link directly to their menu on their website. Which if you're planning on going to a restaurant anyway, I know I personally like to do this. I like to look at the menu before I go to a restaurant and kind of decide before I get there so I don't have to spend a lot of time while I'm there figuring out what I want. So we want to walk alongside you as you scan this QR code. You'll also find it on your handout. I promise it leads to something perfectly safe. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to pull out tablet phone. I'm sure most of you have your phones here. You're going to open up your phone camera. So once you've opened up your phone camera, you're going to point it at the code. Again, you're going to point at the screen or on your paper. And when you point it there, a little link is going to pop up when the camera is looking at the QR code, a little link. Just tap that link. It's really small. Sometimes you miss it, but click that link. It'll take you to where you need to go. Okay, at this point, if you're on the struggle bus a little bit about it, raise your hand. I have some folks back here who want to help you.
Anyone need any
You don't have
help?
to take the picture now. Yeah, you do not have to take a picture, otherwise you're gonna have a random. No, you do not need to take a picture. You
Just tap.
just tap the link and you don't need to take a picture. Otherwise you have a lot of QR codes in your pictures.
What are you looking at?
Yeah, so sometimes you'll miss.
I found out that you don't have to get close to these. As a matter of fact, that makes it worse.
It's just like a moving camera, and it needs to focus.
Yes.
Yeah, so now you know,
Yeah, all of, I made this whole web page. Yes, I just thought it was cute and funny.
That's your,
You're still in camera.
everyone got it?
Everyone think the secrets for awesome message? I'm sorry? You closed it out, it doesn't stand in front now. Yeah. This,
You're not taking a picture, Mary. You're going.
so the result of scanning this QR code, it should have taken you to a website that had a little thing that said, woo, you successfully scanned the QR code. That is a super secret hidden website on our church website that I created just for y'all. So, I have a lot of fun finding little gifts to like put in there. Yes.
QR codes gotta be limited at some point.
I mean, music only has 12 tones in a scale. We haven't run out of music yet. I said music only has 12 tones in a scale, but we haven't run out of music yet. So,
That's an interesting analysis.
I like to think, so when people talk about like a song and music,
I think that's. They love the games. I knew it.
yes, I'll give a minute to finish up with your here's loud
No, it should be right up here.
Bruce, did you get it?
I did.
Did you get your gifts at the bottom?
Yes.
Okay, so Tom asked, he was like, well, with this kind of design, you'd think it'd be kind of limited, right? I responded with a little bit of an analogy. Music uses a 12-tone scale. There are only 12 notes in each scale. I mean, there's a lot of notes on a piano, but a scale in itself is 12 notes. We have not run out of ways to come up with new music yet. And some of our first, one of the first recorded composers is Hildegard von Bingen, who was alive from 1059 to 1173, if I remember music history correctly. She was awesome. She was just a really awesome person. So music's evolved over time off of just these 12 notes. All right, we're at a point. Question time. What questions do you have? First I want to say I really appreciate you all taking the time to be here, your eagerness to learn, the small fraction of technology tips I had to offer you today. When we sent out the invite for this event, you are encouraged to bring your devices. We want to take this time now to walk through any specific questions you might have about your device. Let us know and we'll come by to help. Matthew and Peyton are here, so they can also help. Yes.
I have that question about incognito.
Oh, yeah.
I get newsletters from Kim Commando that I think she has some good advice. I'm an Apple user, so. But she recommends incognito to erase that thing, whatever it is, will erase your information from these outlier websites and reduce your spam.
So incognito does not erase it. It just keeps them from getting it in the first place. So if you've already been to some of these sites and things like that, that might send you spam or whatever, if you've been on some of these websites outside of incognito mode, they have that information. Going to incognito mode is not going to take that away. The way that that goes away, and I don't want to get too far into it just because it all gets a little complex and confusing. There's a thing called cookies. Heard about cookies, yes. They're not always delicious treats. I don't know why they're called cookies, but whatever. Anyway, you can go into your web browser settings and have it clear your cookies. And so like that's a way to erase all that stuff that's happened on those different websites. Now when this happens, sometimes it'll like forget that you ever logged into that site. So I know sometimes on Facebook, you log in, you tell it to remember the device, and you don't have to log in again. So if you clear the cookies, it might log you out of Facebook, you gotta log back in. Which is where Password Manager can help.
I was gonna ask you, okay, if I have an iPhone and I have an iPad, okay, it's removed from one of my devices, will it be removed from the other one?
No, I don't think so.
It's just gonna be that.
It's
Yeah, it
long
would just be
as,
on that device or that browser.
as long as you have your iPhone and your iPad on the same cloud, then they should
When-
be,
They should talk to each other,
They
but just to be safe, I do it on both.
yeah.